I visited my parents and saw every family photo had been edited to remove me. Mom said they look better without me, so I exposed the truth. I was 29 the last time I stepped foot inside my parents' house. It was a chilly Sunday morning in late October, the kind of morning where the air smells like damp leaves and the sky hangs low and gray, as if even it is tired of pretending to be cheerful. I had driven 3 hours without music, just the hum of the tires beneath me and my thoughts crashing into each other inside my head. I had not seen my family in almost a year, not since my brother's birthday dinner, where I had been seated at the far end of the table, like a forgotten guest someone had remembered only after the seating chart was finished. But earlier that week, my mom had called. Her voice was honeyed and casual, like nothing had ever been wrong. She asked if I could come down to see them for a bit. Just lunch, she said. Nothing dramatic. I should have known better. My name is Brian. I work in software. I live alone, and my life is quiet overall. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Nothing worth turning into gossip at a family table. I am not officially estranged from my family, but I have always felt less loved than tolerated, like the spare piece that never quite fit into the perfect picture my parents were trying so hard to frame. My older brother Aaron always fit that picture perfectly. He was 3 years older than me and born with the kind of natural charisma that made adults laugh, ruffle his hair, and talk about how far he was going to go. He went to law school. He married his college sweetheart. He gave our parents 2 adorable grandchildren. He lives exactly 20 minutes away from them. Me? I moved out of state the second I could afford rent on my own. I dated here and there, kept to myself, and poured most of my energy into my career. In my family's eyes, Aaron built a life. I built a hobby. Still, I was not driving down there to start anything. I told myself that over and over again the entire way. I had rehearsed how I would keep things light, smile, politely dodge the little jabs I already knew were coming, and leave after a few hours with my dignity intact. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I thought I was finally mature enough to rise above it all. But deep down, I think I just wanted to be proven wrong. I wanted to believe that maybe things had changed. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same. White paint peeling just a little under the windows. The garden gnomes my mom insisted were whimsical. The same faded welcome mat that had been there since I was a teenager. I stood outside for a moment with my hands in my pockets before I knocked. My mom answered with her usual tight-lipped smile and a quick, perfunctory hug. "You look tired," she said, before I could even say hello. "Are you eating enough?" Classic. Inside the house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary, probably something Aaron's wife had prepped earlier because she was big on meal planning. I said hello to my dad, who gave me a distracted wave from his recliner without looking up from the news. The grandkids were there too, apparently, judging by the shrieks coming from upstairs. And of course, Aaron arrived just minutes after me, perfectly timed as always, breezing in with a joke and a bottle of wine. Everyone lit up. My mom kissed his cheek. My dad finally turned off the TV. Even the dog started wagging its tail like it had just seen Elvis. I stood there like furniture. We made small talk around the kitchen island. I asked about the kids' school projects. I nodded through Aaron's story about some corporate merger I did not care about. I politely declined the wine. Still not drinking, Aaron asked, eyebrows lifted like that was some fascinating character flaw. Good for you, I guess. My mom gave a thin smile and changed the subject. That was when I noticed the wall. It used to be filled with framed photos. Vacations, birthdays, Christmas mornings where we all wore matching pajamas that I hated. But something felt off. I walked toward it slowly, like my legs were not fully convinced I needed to see what my gut already knew. Every photo was there. Every memory was there. Except I was not in them. The Disneyland picture from 1998 showed Mom, Dad, and Aaron holding Mickey balloons. My face was gone. The photo from my high school graduation showed Aaron in his suit and my parents standing in front of the school sign. I was missing. The Christmas photo from 2011 showed Aaron in a Santa hat, his arm slung around empty space where I knew I had been standing. I leaned closer. They were not just cropped. They were photoshopped. The edges were too clean. The lighting did not match. Whoever had done it had tried to be subtle, but I work in tech. I know what masking looks like. They had erased me. I turned to my mom. What happened to the pictures? She did not even look embarrassed. She just shrugged while reaching into a cabinet for plates like we were talking about the weather. Oh, Aaron cleaned them up a bit, she said. Made them nicer. I blinked. Nicer? I'm not in any of them. She paused as if she was only just realizing that. Well, they looked better this way, she said simply, and then she walked out to set the table. I stood there for a long time. I do not remember sitting down for lunch. I do not remember what I ate. I remember Aaron talking loudly, my dad laughing, the grandkids screaming, and me sitting there like a ghost in a room where I used to exist. Not one person mentioned it again. No apology, no explanation, nothing. It was like I was supposed to pretend it did not matter that I had been erased from my own family history. I left before dessert. My mom tried to pack me leftovers and seemed mildly offended when I refused. Don't be so dramatic, she muttered. You always make everything about you. I did not say goodbye. I did not hug anyone. I got in my car and drove straight home. This time I blasted the radio, just so I would not have to hear my own thoughts echoing back at me. They called a few times after that. They texted too, mostly about upcoming birthdays and holiday plans. When I did not respond, the guilt trip started. We're all worried about you. You're being selfish. Why are you punishing us? But they were not worried. They were just confused that their doormat had stopped lying down. I had not told anyone the full story yet, not even my closest friends. I had only said things were complicated with my family. But then, one night I got a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was tight, like she was trying to cry without ruining her mascara. I don't understand what we did wrong, Brian, she said. You're always so sensitive. Are you really not coming to Thanksgiving? You're tearing this family apart. I listened to it 3 times. Then I opened my laptop, because if they wanted to pretend I had never existed, maybe it was time I started pretending they did not exist either. But not before I did something they would never forget. I did not respond to my mom's voicemail. I did not delete it either. I just let it sit in my inbox like a loaded gun on a table, untouched but impossible to ignore. For a while, I thought maybe I would forget about it. Maybe the sting of that visit would fade, and I would go back to pretending like I always had. But the thing about being erased, literally erased, is that it does not fade. It festers. Every time I opened a photo app or scrolled past an old memory on social media, I thought about that wall, that gallery of my own life, rewritten without me, like I had been an inconvenience, a smudge, a stain someone had decided to remove. A few weeks passed. I focused on work. I buried myself in debugging code, late nights, and takeout containers. I did not answer texts. I stopped checking the family group chat, which I had mostly stayed in out of habit anyway. It was not like they ever messaged me directly. Everything in that chat was either about Aaron's kids or some plan I was never invited to until the last second, as if I were an afterthought, a courtesy, a checkbox. Then Thanksgiving came. The text started on Monday. Mom wrote, "We're doing dinner at 3 this year. Aaron's in-laws are coming later. Hope you can make it." Aaron wrote, "Don't be weird. Brian, just show up." Mom wrote again, "It would mean a lot to your father." Dad sent a thumbs up, no apology, no mention of what had happened. Just the casual expectation that I would fall back into place like nothing had changed, like they had not framed an alternate version of my entire childhood on their living room wall. I left them all on red. On Thanksgiving morning, I got one more message from my mom. It was a photo. The table was already set. Crystal glasses, gold-trimmed china, centerpieces that looked straight out of a Pottery Barn catalog, and right in the middle were personalized name cards in elegant cursive. One for Aaron, one for his wife, one for each of their kids, one for my parents, even one for Aaron's dog, who was apparently considered family enough to earn a seat at the table. There was no card for me. I laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd that I did not know what else to do. That was the moment I realized I was not just being excluded. I was being edited out in real time. They were actively crafting a version of this family where I had never existed. I stayed home that day. I made spaghetti and watched old sitcom reruns. Around 5:30, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. This time, she sounded annoyed, not emotional. "We waited for you, Brian. Aaron told me not to, but I said we should. Why are you doing this? Why are you punishing us for trying to keep things peaceful? There was that word again, punishing. As if I was the one making things difficult. As if they had not rewritten my life out of existence and expected me to smile about it over mashed potatoes. That night, I went digging. I opened a folder on my hard drive labeled Old Stuff and started scrolling through pictures from the past 20 years. Real photos. The ones I had saved because they actually meant something to me. There was one of me and Aaron building a treehouse with our dad in the summer of 1999. Another one showed all of us at my college graduation, me holding my diploma and beaming, my mom standing beside me with tears in her eyes. Then there was one I had completely forgotten about, my 10th birthday party. I was in a homemade Batman costume, chocolate frosting smeared across my face. Aaron was holding up a sign that said, "Happy birthday, little bro," with way too many exclamation points. I stared at that one for a long time because it meant that once, at least once, this family had loved me, or at least pretended to. And somewhere along the way, that version of us had been lost. I was not prepared for what happened next. A week later, I got a text from my cousin Megan. We had been close growing up, but we drifted apart after she moved out of state. Still, we followed each other on Instagram and occasionally liked each other's posts. Her message was short. "Hey, are you okay? I saw something weird at Aunt Laura's last night." I called her immediately. Apparently, Aunt Laura had pulled out a few old photo albums while Megan was visiting. Family pictures, holidays, all of that. But what caught Megan's eye was that several photos had been altered badly. She could see where the edges did not quite match. More importantly, she remembered me being in them. She remembered the original versions. "I swear, Brian," she said, "there was this one from that Christmas at Grandma's house when we were teenagers. You and I were standing in front of the tree making goofy faces. I know you were in that photo. But when Aunt Laura showed it to me, you were gone. Like you had never been there." My blood went cold. "Did you ask her about it?" "Yeah," Megan said, hesitant. "She brushed it off, said she didn't remember you being there, which is insane because you were literally the one taking most of the photos that year." I could not breathe. It was not just the pictures on my parents' wall. It was not just their house. It was spreading. "I think they've been giving people the edited versions," Megan said quietly, "sending them out, replacing them." I hung up and immediately called another cousin, Tom, who lived nearby and had always been neutral in the family drama. I asked him if he had any old photos saved from back in the day. He did. I asked him to send me the ones from my 21st birthday party. It had been at my parents' house back when things were still normal-ish. I remembered us all taking a big family photo in the backyard under those tacky solar lights my mom loved. Tom sent it. I opened the image. I was not in it. Not cropped, not blocked by someone else. I had been removed cleanly, almost seamlessly, like I had never stood there at all. I wanted to throw my laptop across the room. What kind of person does that? What kind of family does that? It was not until 2 nights later, after a long and restless scroll through every tagged Facebook photo from the last decade, that I realized how deep it went. My mom had been quietly untagging me from group pictures. My brother had posted a Throwback Thursday collage from our childhood. Every single photo was one I remembered, but in every one, I had been removed or replaced. It was not just erasure, it was replacement. Aaron's kids had been photoshopped into pictures from years before they were even born. A photo of a camping trip from 2007 now showed one of his daughters holding a sparkler, even though she had not existed yet. In one image, my arm was still visible around someone's shoulders, but my face had been blurred and replaced with a mismatched pixelated version of Aaron's youngest child. I started to feel nauseous. This was not just my family being cold. This was calculated, intentional. They were not simply pretending I did not matter. They were actively rewriting history to pretend I had never existed. The final straw came 3 days later. I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Cream cardstock, elegant calligraphy. It was from Aaron and his wife. They were renewing their vows for their 10th anniversary. Of course. But what caught my eye was not the invitation itself. It was the photo they used. A full-color print of Aaron and his wife on their wedding day, standing under an arch of white roses. Only that was not the original photo, because I had been Aaron's best man. I had stood next to him that day with my hand on his shoulder, smiling like an idiot. In this version, the man standing next to him was their oldest son, who had been 2 years old at the time. They had photoshopped me out again, this time replacing me with someone who had not even been old enough to walk down the aisle. I stood in my kitchen holding that invitation like it was a bomb. And maybe it was. Because in that moment, something in me snapped. The part of me that had tried to keep the peace, that had swallowed every slight, that had told myself maybe they did not mean it that way, or it was not worth the fight. That part of me died. They wanted me gone. They wanted to pretend I had never existed. Fine, but I was not going quietly. I started planning something that night. Something they would not see coming. Something they could not Photoshop their way out of. And when I was done, they were going to wish they had just left the pictures alone. I did not sleep the night I got that wedding invitation. I just sat at my kitchen table, with the card still propped against a coffee mug I never touched, staring at that photo like it might blink or speak or offer me some kind of explanation. I had not just been erased from the picture. I had been replaced, literally overwritten by a child who had not even been in preschool when the photo was taken. It felt like the final nail in a coffin I had not realized they had been building for years. I had spent most of my adult life excusing my family's behavior, downplaying it, telling myself I was just sensitive, or maybe not trying hard enough to connect, or maybe too different to really fit in. Aaron was the golden child. That was fine. Some families are like that. I could live with not being the favorite. I had built a life. I had my own apartment, a steady job, and friends who checked in on me. But seeing my image literally rewritten in family memories was not favoritism. It was something darker. It was exile. And for the first time, I let myself sit with the pain of that truth. I did not brush it off. I did not laugh it away. I let it hurt, because it did hurt. The next few weeks were a blur. I barely got out of bed. I woke up late, worked from home in sweatpants, and barely touched food. My sleep was broken and shallow. When I was not working, I was scrolling through old photos like I was trying to prove to myself that I had actually existed. I felt hollow, like a character in someone else's story who had just realized he was being written out of the plot. People noticed. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I told them I was just tired. My closest friend Kevin came over one Friday night and found me half asleep on the couch, surrounded by printouts of old photos like a deranged detective trying to solve his own disappearance. "What's going on, man?" he asked, nudging a stack of photos with his foot. "Did someone die?" "Yeah," I muttered. "Me." Kevin raised an eyebrow, but he did not laugh. He sat down across from me and listened. Really listened. I told him everything. The Photoshop childhood, the pictures on the wall, the family events where I was never invited, never tagged, never named. I told him about the wedding invitation, the replacement, the way nobody ever apologized or even acknowledged what they were doing, and how they always made it my fault for pulling away. When I finished, Kevin was quiet for a long time. "Dude," he finally said, "that's not just messed up, that's pathological. That is cult-level gaslighting." I let out a dry laugh. I thought I was being dramatic. "You're not. That's Twilight Zone stuff." He looked around the room at all the photos I had printed and spread out like a memorial service. "So, what are you going to do?" I did not answer right away because I did not know. Revenge. Disowning them. Calling them out publicly. Calling them out quietly. I was still too tangled in grief to think straight, but I knew one thing for certain. I was not going to let them define me anymore. That night, after Kevin left, I opened a blank document on my laptop and started typing. Not a letter to them, not a plan for revenge, just my story from the beginning. I wrote about what it was like growing up invisible. I wrote about the little slights I used to tell myself did not matter, the birthday they forgot, the graduation dinner they skipped, the times they joked about me being the weird one. I wrote about the photos, the edits, and the silence. I kept writing every night until my fingers ached and my mind emptied. It was the first thing that made me feel like myself again, like I was taking my identity back, sentence by sentence. In the weeks that followed, I started reclaiming other parts of my life too. I cleaned my apartment from top to bottom. I got a haircut. I bought a new desk. I rearranged the furniture. I deleted the family group chat from my phone. I blocked my mom and Aaron on social media, not out of spite, but out of necessity. I needed space to breathe. I also started therapy. It had been a long time coming. I had always made excuses, too expensive, too time-consuming, not for me. But the truth was, I was scared to sit with the things I had buried, scared to hear that maybe I had done something to deserve the way I had been treated. My therapist, a quiet and observant woman named Michelle, did not let me go there. "You don't need to earn basic dignity," she said in one of our first sessions. "You don't have to perform to be worthy of love." That sentence cracked something open in me. Over the next few months, I learned how to speak about my pain without minimizing it. I learned that boundaries were not cruel. I learned that it was okay to walk away from people who chose to harm you, even if they shared your DNA. I started going for long walks after work, letting my thoughts drift without dragging me under. I rediscovered my love for photography, real photography, not the kind that deletes people. I started shooting cityscapes at dusk, portraits of strangers in the park, candid shots of street performers. I created an Instagram account to share my work anonymously. Within a few weeks, it started gaining traction. One photo in particular, an old man sitting alone on a bench, silhouetted by the orange glow of a street lamp, got reposted by a local art page. It exploded. People commented about how haunting and beautiful it was. Someone said it felt like a visual poem about grief and healing. They had no idea how right they were. That photo became my profile picture, not because it was popular, but because it reminded me that I still had a story to tell. I was still in the picture, even if others had tried to crop me out. Then one afternoon, an email popped up that stopped me cold. The subject line read, "Family archive request for photo submissions." It was from my Aunt Laura. Apparently, she and a few other relatives were putting together a digital memory book for Grandma's 80th birthday. They were asking everyone to submit old family photos and stories so they could compile everything into a slideshow for the party. I stared at the screen for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it, delete it, and keep moving forward with my new, quiet life. But then I thought about the photos they had already collected, the ones Aaron and my parents had probably submitted. I thought about how this archive might become the official record, the version of our family history that would live on. And I could not shake the feeling that if I did nothing, they would win. So I started going through my hard drive again. This time, I was not just collecting evidence. I was curating my version of the story. I pulled together photos they could not have deleted, ones I had taken with my own camera, or ones where I was the only person in the shot. I included goofy selfies with my cousins, behind-the-scenes photos from family trips, pictures of me and Grandma baking cookies in her old kitchen with flour smudged on our faces, photos that proved I had been there and that I had mattered. I even included one photo from Aaron's wedding, the original version, where I was standing right next to him, beaming in my ill-fitting suit and holding the ring box. I labeled it Best Man 2013. I wrote captions for all of them, not snarky, not petty, just truthful. This was the summer we all went camping. Aaron and I fought over who could pitch the tent faster. I won. This was my college graduation. Mom said she was proud of me that day. This was my 10th birthday. That man party. Grandma made the cake. I ate 3 slices and got sick. Worth it. I uploaded all of them to the shared drive. 3 days later, I got a message from Aunt Laura. "Thank you for sending these, Brian. Some of them brought me to tears. I'd forgotten how much you were part of everything." Another message followed. "Megan saw your photos. Thank you. I knew I wasn't crazy." The slideshow went live a week later. I was not at the party. I had not been invited. But Megan sent me a video of the slideshow playing on a screen in Grandma's living room. I watched as image after image filled the screen. Photos of me laughing, building, celebrating, growing. The music was soft. The mood was nostalgic. Then came the wedding photo, the original one. I watched Aaron's face visibly stiffen in the video. His jaw clenched. His wife leaned over and whispered something. My mom looked away. Good. They were not the only ones with the power to shape a narrative. I never got a direct message from Aaron or my parents. No apology. No explanation. But I did not need one anymore because something had shifted. They wanted me gone, but I had reclaimed my place. Not by begging to be included, but by proving I had always been there. Still, this was not the end. While they were busy pretending I was invisible, I was quietly planning something they would never be able to ignore. I waited not for an apology, because by then I knew that was not coming. What I waited for was clarity. Not emotional clarity, but strategic clarity. Revenge was not about explosions, screaming matches, or big dramatic gestures. Revenge was about timing, precision. Letting the truth slip into a space so public, so undeniable, that even the most manipulative people could not distort it anymore. After reclaiming my identity piece by piece, through my art, through therapy, through reconnecting with relatives who actually remembered me, I finally had the clarity I needed. I started with research. I began compiling timelines. I made a spreadsheet, not out of obsession, but out of necessity. Every family event I remembered being at, every photo that proved it, every altered version I had evidence of, I cataloged all of it. The original photo from my 10th birthday party with me in it, and the version Aaron had posted last year where I had been replaced by one of his kids. My college graduation, which my parents claimed they barely remembered attending, even though I had a video of my dad giving a toast. The family vacation in 2006, where my brother now claimed I had not come because I was off sulking somewhere, except there I was in my cousin's scrapbook helping build the bonfire. Most importantly, I kept track of who had shared or reshared the edited versions. Aunt Laura, Uncle Rick, my mother, Aaron. All of them had either reposted altered images or participated in this narrative rewrite, whether knowingly or not. But I also tracked the people who had not. Megan, for one. She had become an unexpected lifeline, texting me regularly with updates, screenshots, and things she overheard. She had screenshots of the family group chat where my mom talked about me in the third person, like I was not even in the room. It's best we don't invite Brian this year. He always makes things uncomfortable. Aaron's worried about the energy Brian brings. We're trying to keep things light. Let's not include him in the memory book photos, okay? We want it to be positive. Positive. That word burned. Megan found something else, too. Apparently, Aaron had started telling people I had distanced myself from the family after a nervous breakdown. Not because of their treatment. Not because I was being actively erased from every corner of our shared history. No. According to him, I was emotionally unstable. That was the push I needed. So I reached out to the last person I ever thought I would call again. Grandma. She was 80 now, sharp as ever, but quiet. She had always been diplomatic in family matters, the type to mediate instead of take sides. But she was also sentimental. She kept boxes and boxes of photos, real ones, untouched, unfiltered photos my parents probably had not gotten their hands on yet. I called her and asked if I could come visit. She sounded surprised, but warm. I'd love that, she said. It's been too long. I drove out the next weekend. She lived in a small town a few hours away, and when I got there, she greeted me with a frail hug and watery eyes. You look just like your grandfather, she said, touching my cheek. We had tea. We talked about nothing at first, then about the family. I moved carefully until I saw an old album on her coffee table. I asked if I could look through it. She handed it over. There I was, page after page, smiling, awkward teenage me, holding sparklers, helping in the garden, standing arm in arm with Aaron at his engagement party. There was no denying it. I had been there. I had mattered. And now I had proof. Undisputable, tangible proof. Grandma, I said softly, do you know some of these photos are different online? She blinked. What do you mean? I showed her my phone, side-by-side comparisons, original versus edited, cropped birthday photos, the wedding picture, my literal deletion. Her hand shook a little as she held the phone. They did this? She asked. Yeah, I said, they did. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said something I did not expect. You should tell people. I paused. You think so? I know so, she said. It's time someone did. So I began. First, I secured digital copies of Grandma's photos. She even helped me scan some of them. We laughed at how bad some of the old shots were. Her printer jammed 3 times, and we ended up eating frozen pizza on TV trays like it was 2002 again. For a moment, family felt like a real thing again, not a lie, not a performance. Once I had everything, I sat down to build what I came to call the archive. It was not for the public, not yet. For now, it was personal. A Dropbox folder with clear labels, originals, collected, edited versions, side-by-sides, video evidence, voice memos from Grandma and Megan. I even made a timeline document. It was clinical, almost cold. Exact dates, image names, who shared what, where, and when. No commentary, just facts. The pattern was clear. Over the last 6 years, I had been systematically scrubbed from my family's history. By Aaron, my parents, and whether knowingly or not, a few others. With the archive built, I needed the moment, the spark, the perfect time to expose it. Not just for vindication, but for impact. I did not want to scream into the void. I wanted the truth to hit the exact people who had spent years pretending I was nothing. And then, fate handed me a golden opportunity. Megan texted me a screenshot. Aaron and his wife were planning a family legacy video, a slick, edited, documentary-style project to celebrate my parents' 40th anniversary. They had hired a professional videographer, were collecting stories from relatives, and planned to play the final cut at a massive garden party in June. They were inviting extended family from all over the country. The whole thing was going to be recorded. It was perfect. I did not tell Megan my full plan. I only asked if she could get me access to the videographer. She said she would try. A few days later, she sent me his contact information. "Don't say I gave it to you," she wrote, "but he's chill. Just tell him you're part of the family and want to contribute a segment." So, I did. I reached out as Brian Aaron's younger brother and asked if I could record a message for the tribute video. I said I wanted to celebrate our parents in my own way. The videographer was polite. "Sure, man. Just shoot something horizontal and email it to me. I'll slot it in." I recorded 2 versions. Version 1 was sweet, clean, and emotional, the one I knew they expected. Version 2 was the truth. Not a rant, not a tantrum, just a calm, steady voiceover with visuals. It started with a photo of me and Aaron at ages 7 and 10, playing in the backyard. Then a caption appeared. This photo never made it into the family slideshow. Then came the side-by-side shots. Me, present in the original, gone in the new version. I included timestamps, metadata, Grandma's voice reading old dates, Megan's quiet voice confirming who was actually present at certain events. I even played a screen recording of Aaron's Facebook post from 2 years earlier, the one where my smiling face had been replaced by his toddler daughter in Photoshop. Then I ended it with this. You can crop me out of the pictures. You can rewrite stories and replace faces. But you don't get to rewrite me. I was there. I am part of this family, and no amount of editing will change that. I attached the file and sent it off, but I did not stop there. I also uploaded the full archive to a private site I built over one weekend. Simple design, password protected, titled The Family They Forgot. I sent the password to 3 people, Megan, Grandma, and just for fun, Aunt Laura. A week before the anniversary party, Megan texted me a single sentence. "They're panicking." Apparently, the videographer had included the wrong version in the final draft. Whether by mistake or as a quiet act of rebellion, I still do not know. But the moment my parents and Aaron previewed the video, they flipped. They tried to get it pulled. They tried to reschedule a re-edit. But it was too late. The files had been submitted. The venue was booked. The guests had RSVP'd. They could not cancel without raising questions. All they could do was brace themselves. And I waited, calm, steady, because I knew the moment was coming. The moment where the masks would finally crack. The moment where they would have to watch the world see exactly what they had tried so hard to erase. When that day arrived, I was ready. The garden party was set for a warm Saturday afternoon in early June. The sky stretched cloudless above a rented event space my parents and Aaron had booked just outside their town. A place with white gazebos, neatly trimmed hedges, a string quartet, and round tables covered in soft gold linens. It was supposed to be perfect. A celebration of family legacy, a 40-year anniversary. Grandparents smiling for photos, kids running across the grass, catered food with little name cards. The kind of event where every detail screamed togetherness, love, and unity. Except this time, the pictures could not lie. Not anymore. I did not attend the event. I debated it, but ultimately, I wanted the moment to be theirs. Their show, their stage. I did not need to be physically present for the truth to land where it needed to. My absence would speak for itself, especially when the video played. Megan had agreed to record it for me. Not just the reaction, but the entire moment, the build-up, the expressions, the fallout. She positioned her phone carefully, muting the sound until the video segment began. She even brought a friend who pretended to be one of the photographers, which let her move freely between tables to capture the audience's reactions. The final video was 20 minutes long, and I watched every second. It began with a cheerful montage. Pictures of my parents in the 80s dancing at their wedding, holding Aaron as a baby. Guests clap politely and sip champagne. The music swelled with nostalgia. People smiled and whispered fondly to each other. Then came the next sequence, our family through the years. That was when everything shifted. The first few photos played as expected. Aaron's birthdays, my parents in front of the old family home. Then about 3 minutes in, the screen went black. A single photo appeared. Me and Aaron, ages 7 and 10, holding water guns in the backyard. Unedited. The caption appeared in white font. This photo never made it into the family slideshow. There was a pause. Then the next image appeared, the edited version, the one where I had been cropped out completely. The audience murmured confused. Then more side-by-side comparisons appeared. My face erased, my arm still visible, whole scenes rewritten. The captions were neutral, almost documentary style. Original 2006 family camping trip. Edited version posted in 2021. Figure on the left replaced digitally. A few heads turned. Aaron, seated at the front table, visibly stiffened. My mother leaned toward him and whispered something, one hand clutching her pearls. Then my voice came on. Calm, clear, measured. Not angry, not vengeful. Just honest. I spoke over a slow pan of childhood photos. My name is Brian. I'm the youngest son of the couple being celebrated today. Some of you may not recognize me, and that's no accident. For the past several years, I have been gradually erased from our family's collective memory. Removed from photographs, cropped out of narratives, replaced, or simply deleted. I'm not here to cause drama. I just want to share the version of this family you weren't shown. There were gasps, quiet coughs. The clinking of forks stopped. I showed more images. A video clip of Aaron's wedding where I stood beside him. Then the altered version they had used for their vow renewal, where his son stood in my place. I timed it perfectly. As I spoke about being replaced, the frame froze on that exact swap. My face, gone. His child, photoshopped in. The lighting not even matched. In Megan's recording, I watched Aaron's face. He looked like a man watching his house collapse in slow motion. His wife shifted uncomfortably. My dad closed his eyes. My mom stared at the screen with a rigid smile that cracked at the edges. Then came the final segment, photos of me and Grandma, me with Megan. A clip of my cousin Tom saying, "Of course Brian was there. He took this photo while pointing to a group picture where I had been erased." And then Grandma's voice came on, trembling but firm, reading a quote from a letter she had written me just 2 weeks before. Every family has a choice between truth and comfort, between love and control. I'm sorry I stayed silent so long. You were always part of this family, and you always will be. I closed the video with one final image, me standing alone in the backyard the previous fall, holding a framed photo of my 10th birthday, the real one. The caption read, "I was always there, you just stopped looking." The screen faded to black. Silence. No music, no applause. Just stunned, awkward silence. In Megan's video, people started shifting in their chairs. A few guests glanced at Aaron, then at my parents. Some whispered. Aunt Laura looked like she had swallowed a lemon. Uncle Rick took a long sip of wine. One of Aaron's friends actually got up and walked outside. Then came the whispers, the tension, and finally, the fallout. I found out later that the rest of the party went completely off script. The planned speeches were cut. My dad sat quietly for the rest of the event, barely speaking. My mom tried to laugh it off. She tried to joke that Brian has always been theatrical, but people were not buying it. Megan told me that 3 different relatives approached her privately to ask if the photos were real. She showed them the side-by-sides, the dates. They could not deny it. The truth was out. But I was not done. The next morning, I updated the private archive and made it public. I added a disclaimer at the top. This is not about shaming. This is about remembering what is true. Then I sent the link to every guest who had attended the party, politely, just so they could see the full story for themselves. I did not call anyone out by name. I did not need to. Within 48 hours, Aaron deactivated his Facebook. 3 days later, I got a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Aaron. "You win. Hope you're happy." I did not respond because it was never about winning. It was about being seen. Megan told me my parents were taking a break from social events. Apparently, a few longtime family friends had quietly pulled away. My mom stopped posting family photos altogether. My dad has not spoken to Grandma since the party. She is fine with that. I think I finally stood for something she told me on a call. Feels good, actually. As for me, I moved cities. I got a new job at a bigger firm, one that respects balance and leaves room for passion projects. My photography took off too. After the story of my edited childhood went mildly viral on a local blog, people started asking about my work. I even booked a small solo gallery show. The theme was The Ones Who Stayed in Frame. I am still in touch with Megan. I am still in touch with Grandma too. Occasionally, a cousin reaches out and thanks me for saying what they were too afraid to say. But mostly, I am just living, breathing easier. I have started taking family photos again, only this time I am the one holding the camera. And the final shot is always honest. You can erase a face from a photo, but you cannot erase the truth from the people who lived it.